Hi folks, I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Ken Calvert alongside Father Joe Grimaldi, and we would like to welcome you to the Father Joe Podcast. The Father Joe Grimaldi Podcast, proudly supported by Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln. Stop by 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield. Have a cup of coffee with one of their seasoned, certified sales specialists. They're happy to show you the impressive new lineup of stunning Lincoln vehicles, including the all-new must-have 2020 Lincoln Aviator. Can't stop in? You can shop online, starlincoln.com. Great way of doing it, by the way. Get a cup of coffee, sit down in front of the computer, go through all the models, all the styles, all the looks, the interiors, the packages. Everything you could want in a vehicle is available for you online. You can sit right there and get it all done at home. As you know, I'm driving and loving the Lincoln MKC. You got to check that out. The all-new Nautilus is absolutely off the charts. And Star would like to thank all of you for one of their best months ever. Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln, 12 Mile Road and Telegraph in Southfield, home of not just the Star treatment, but the Father Joe Star treatment. Oh, yeah. This past week, maybe even 10 days ago, we lost a high-profile politician here in the area.
Uh-huh.
And this past weekend, they went back and sort of did, they did a look-back media-wise. He was a regular on this television program on Sundays, and just a wonderful, wonderful individual. I had the opportunity to know him for some time. He was an acerbic son of a gun, but he lost his battle with cancer, as so many people unfortunately do. One of the things that they were talking about, he happened to have been in a car accident prior to being diagnosed with cancer. Well, back then he nearly lost his life.
Correct.
And they were talking to him shortly after that, and he said something that made me think about you and made me think about our podcasts here. He was asked about death and dying. He didn't think long about it. He just simply said, well, I was born and raised a Catholic. He was born and raised a Catholic.
Uh-huh.
But beyond that, where was he? Was he a regular attendee of Mass? We don't know. I don't know. Do you think there are people out there that roll through life, born and raised Catholics, who don't really participate that much anymore, think that being born and raised a Catholic, is good enough to get you into heaven?
Well, people could think whatever they want. But they still have to face the reality of whatever happens. It's not for me to judge, because God deals with people in his own terms. And he accepts people wherever they are. It's like, in the old days, we believed that if someone never heard the word of God, then he could never be, and he wasn't baptized, he could never go into heaven. Well, that's not true. That he could be naturally, or she could be naturally good and do care for mankind and do wonderful things for other people and for the world and for society. And, they could be good-natured. They would be, in a way, they would have their own religion, if you want. And the Lord could certainly accept that. If they never heard the word, if they were never given the word, and they just did good things, let's hope for the best. Now, I don't know the way God deals with these people. I wish I did. I just don't know. But I would assume that each case is individual, and God accepts people where they are. We're not always on the same level.
Right.
And we cannot judge somebody else because we don't know what's on the inside of that person. We only know the exterior. Okay? A person may be born and raised a Catholic, and yet may do good things, may have his reasons for not going on a regular basis to Mass. I mean, who am I to judge?
I realize that, but I'm just wondering, I think there are people out there that are good people,
Yes.
really good people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't break any laws.
Right.
They have a beautiful family.
Correct.
They're faithful.
Right.
They believe in prayer. They certainly understand the Mass, maybe a wedding. They probably take communion. But I'm wondering if some people out there just think that just being baptized and receiving the sacraments is enough.
Yeah, but I don't know what God is going to do with that.
How much emphasis does the church put on people being regular practitioners of their faith?
Whenever the church speaks out in a dogmatic way, it's always an ideal to be strived for. How the person approaches that ideal varies, and we cannot judge what that person is thinking and how he or she is trying to arrive at that ideal. So we really cannot tell what's going on. It could be, it may not be, who knows, because we don't know what's on the inside of that individual. And we don't know how God really acts with the laws of the man-made church. The church is both a spiritual entity and a physical entity. As a physical entity, it runs like a business. It has records to keep. It has rules to proclaim. It has all of those different things. As a spiritual entity, it's God and the people. And we don't know exactly how these people react to God. We know more or less what they do on a superficial basis. We see them either going to church or not going to church, but we really don't know what they're thinking and how they're relating to their God. So it's hard for people to judge other people. Like anybody else, I don't think I would want to be judged by somebody else because they don't know what's in my heart. And I don't know what's in their heart. And this is why I say you can't. But the church as a physical entity acts like a business. And therefore it has to have rules and regulations. Let's face it, when Jesus was walking the earth like you and I walk, which he did, well, he didn't have rules about attending Mass every Sunday. He said you got to love your God and you got to love your neighbor, basically.
Yep.
Well, as the church developed and became much more complicated because of the numbers of people, especially in the first 400 years after the resurrection, the church just increased in leaps and bounds. It grew. Well, there had to be organization, and the organization was the physical entity of the church. The spiritual entity was still simple, was God and man, and God's love for man. Whereas the physical entity, you had to deal with a lot of paperwork and records and so on. I mean, God didn't take registration forms for you to go to church, in the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that, this is a bit of an aside, the church keeps baptismal records very carefully, or they should. And the reason I say that is because very often when the actual legal proofs are gone or missing and they can find baptismal records, those baptismal records become legal papers.
They do.
That were very much so. And so that, for example, when a person gets married, the baptismal certificate, the record of that marriage is entered into that baptismal certificate. One of the questions I always get asked, why does the church, when we want to get married or we want to go to a Catholic school, why do they want a recent copy of the baptismal certificate? Well, because the recent copy of the baptismal certificate includes all of the different events that that person went through. Marriage, First Communion, confirmation, all of that. It's all on the back of that original baptismal certificate. If you just present your baptismal certificate when somebody asks for it, the original one, well, all you get is you were baptized, you were born on this day, and your parents were so-and-so and so-and-so, but that's it. But there's no record because it hasn't been recorded. The recordings take place later on. So when a person is married, for example, where were you baptized?
Me? St. Suzanne.
St. Suzanne, on your baptismal certificate, has your confirmation, your marriage. It's all there. Believe it or not.
But I was confirmed at St. Bede.
It doesn't matter. St. Suzanne is the one that has it.
But St. Suzanne is no longer in existence.
Whoever has those records.
Now.
And they're usually, very often, they go to the diocesan archives. And so, for example, very often we have to refer to the archives because of the church closures. And so we've confined the baptismal certificate in that area.
What I do want to know, though, is do you encourage people to possibly investigate that? I mean, it's kind of like a little bit of an... I know you don't want to go too deep.
What do you mean investigate it?
In other words, I would like to know more about what it says about my mom and my dad. And is there more information about their wedding date or any of that?
No.
Oh, there
Only
isn't.
things that happen in your life.
Oh.
So you would have to go to your mom's baptismal certificate.
Oh.
And on the back of it, it would have the date of her wedding, her confirmation, and so on. No, the baptismal certificate only applies to the individual who was baptized.
Oh, okay.
The original...
I thought it had more to do with the, verification process. Yeah, okay.
Now, if you may have a copy of that original baptismal certificate.
Yeah.
However, it's worthless in the sense that if a church, let's say you're getting married and they want to see your baptismal certificate, well, they can't use the original. They have to get the one that's presently existing.
Well, I guarantee you this. People that are listening to this podcast will all of a sudden think twice and then maybe know exactly where it is. And I know that there are other people listening right now who are going to go, I'm going to find that. You know what I mean?
Find the baptismal certificate?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, they can do that.
Yeah.
Well, if they do, what they have to do is if the church of baptism still exists, then they could ask for a copy of it. And on the back of it, it'll say that they were married in such and such a church and so on.
See, my wife and I don't have kids, so that part of maybe the document forms, maybe those are handed off to the parents the day of, or maybe a week later it comes in the mail. Something would come to them, right? Like I said, without having kids, I don't know.
Yeah, they would have a copy.
Okay.
But that would be the original.
These are the little things that I never knew that I find fascinating, and I'm sure other people will as well. Getting back to I was born and raised a Catholic, that's good enough. Based on everything I learned in grade school and also in high school when I was paying attention was be a good person, take the sacraments, and I'm good to go. I'm not going straight to heaven, but I'm good. I'm a good person, I'm going to heaven.
Let me say this much. We live in faith and die in hope. So basically,
I love that.
I'm not one to judge, and I don't think anyone can judge someone else. The only thing is, I personally live my life every day in faith. And the faith that I practice, the way I practice it, the way I do things, and so on. And then, at that moment of death, I will die in hope that I will see the promised land. And I think this is something we have to keep in mind. But I can't judge on John Smith. And I don't know if he is truly living in faith. And I don't know when the time comes how he's going to die and what his relationship is with God. So I don't know. I think your topic today, our topic today, is very interesting. But I don't know how much we can truly expand on it because it's a matter of judging other people, and we can't.
Yeah, I just happened to watch it, and it was a wonderful segment Because naturally, A, I miss the person.
Yeah.
B, I'm sorry for the situation and the circumstances of his passing, because I think there was a lot of life left in this human being.
Oh, there was.
Gosh, he
Yeah.
brought a ton of spark to any conversation he was involved in.
Even in
And
his wheelchair.
even in his wheelchair, yes. Wonderful, wonderful human being. And people across the aisle were not fans. I mean, he fought with the best of them. But I found the way he said it in a way, Father Joe, comforting. I mean, it seemed that he felt better just saying that.
Uh-huh.
All right? Now, maybe he was not, again, like I said, maybe he was not maybe he was a Creaster. Maybe he was a cafe Catholic. Maybe he didn't go to Mass at all. But he felt some great comfort and joy in saying, I was born and raised a Catholic. I could just tell.
To me, he has tremendous respect for the Catholic religion. It's for him to feel that way. That's the only thing I can see right now.
Right.
But I can't judge where that's going to lead him.
Well, I just started thinking about other people that you hear say it. Should people be saying, I'm a practicing Catholic, as if to dismiss the others who are born and raised a Catholic?
Nobody can judge anybody else.
So that's the moral of the story.
We know what the rules are. We know what the goals are.
Yeah.
And we all have to strive for those goals.
Yes, we do.
Not everybody does it exactly the way it is laid out.
That's the most important thing you said. There's no way that everybody could do it the same way.
Right.
That's what it's all about. If I could make all sorts of analogies, and you know me, I'm an analogy machine, so you don't want to get me started this late into the podcast. Here's my final question for you on being born and raised a Catholic. And I don't know why I've got the good angel over here today and the little devil over here today.
We all do.
Ask him this one. Hey, what's the least a Catholic can do and still get into heaven? Ask him. See if he's got an answer.
I do.
You have an answer?
Yeah, I don't know.
You're killing me with that.
Yeah, but how can anybody say anything?
Because you have to think about what you should be doing to get into heaven.
You do the best you can.
Well, I do the best.
I have to do the best I can.
Well,
period.
you do the best you can.
Right.
So you got a straight shot. Mine's going to be a little bit,
You don't know that.
I'm going to come over there and take that microphone away from you. You know that? You know for a fact, well, I'm not going to get into arguing that with you at all. But
no.
So can we end on this? Judge not, and you shall not be judged?
Correct.
How about love thy brother?
Beautifully.
As yourself?
Beautifully.
Okay. How about, come on now, people. Smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try and love one another right
Oh, if everybody
now.
could love one another, we'd be in good shape these days.
We could always do the old Coca-Cola song and
I'm
end up with
sure.
that. Like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. Man, we need that more than ever.
We do.
Well, we need these podcasts more than ever, don't you think?
Oh, definitely.
All right. Listen, folks.
Because I hope that we speak to the man in the street.
I'm Ken Calvert, and I'd like to thank you for joining us on the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast.
I'm happy to be here with you. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.